and welcome to Soulful. All right. Hello again, and welcome back, or welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Soulful. My name is Drew, or officially Andrew J. Assini, if you prefer. And I am back in the States, back in Jersey, where it is almost as hot as it just was in Mexico. Yeah, definitely a warm welcome here in Jersey, where it is well into the 90s. But I was properly prepared with the 90 plus degrees and the 70 plus humidity in Playa del Carmen. So this hasn't been too bad. Well, I've been seeing some folks, posting on social media that their faces are melting or other things are melting. Yeah, I've been prepared. So a warm welcome. Maybe not the most pleasant welcome, and that has nothing to do with any people's or persons. Just just the fact that I came home with corona and have spent most of the week, not feeling super great, not feeling so hot. Yeah, it must have been like the last day or two. And then my first full day home, my folks broke out the test and I popped hot for the Rona. And it's been a week of, on again, off again, fever and chills, sweating through the night. A throat that feels like sandpaper and broken glass. Y'all been there. Yeah, Rona is not any fun. Second time is not any better than the first time, and this Mexican Rona, is not any nicer. So, that being said, I'm actually feeling much better today. I'm probably in the 90%, we'll say. Drinking my first cup of coffee in over a week. And it's wonderful to taste the coffee and get my smell back. Yeah. But honestly, the worst part about this time with COVID is that I gave it to my dad, which, that sucked. Watching him deteriorate as as I've gotten better, and neither of us are real good with the man flu, so getting him sick has not felt wonderful. And then actually this morning my mom just tested positive as well, so I'm back and now everybody's sick. Oh, awesome. Yeah, so not feeling terribly wonderful about that, but I don't know. What am I going to do? It is what it is. I have learned not to argue with reality, and I will feel the feelings that come along with giving my parents COVID. And but like I said, I'm feeling better. My dad's already on the mend, which is nice. And I don't know. And COVID wasn't that bad for my mom last time. So I'm hoping it will not be that bad as well this time. So sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. Love you. It also stinks because half the reason I wanted to be back in Jersey was to hang out by the pool here at my parents' house and play with my niece and nephews. But they have been kept far away from from the COVID house over here. But Maybe next week. Yeah, or next weekend. Now that Grammy also has COVID. So, yeah. So a warm welcome, weather-wise, but not the most fun I've ever had this first week back. But it does feel good to be back with family. Not have to do the sick alone. Because I've done that before a couple times in a couple different parts of the world. And yeah, it's just never fun to be alone and sick, So grateful to be back. Maybe my parents are not so grateful to have me back. But, they're both hanging out by the pool right now, so it's not that bad. On a lighter note, or a cooler note, I do have some awesome news to share with y'all. I got an official release date for the Cornerstones book. So, yeah, super pumped, super excited. Mark your calendars. Tuesday, July 9th. Bum, bum, bum. The Cornerstones, Investing in Authenticity, will officially become available online for purchasing. And then you can have it in like a day or two via Amazon. Yeah, super excited for that. That was a couple of the bright moments over the last week was submitting the final draft for formatting and seeing the cover for the first time. So stay tuned for the Cornerstones coming soon to an Amazon near you. Yeah, a couple weeks now, July 9th. So that's cool. And yeah, and actually the content for these next 3 episodes was originally included in the first copy of the book. So when I wrote out the Cornerstone books the first time, I included what will be explored and what I'll be sharing about in the next couple episodes. But then in my second or third revision, I decided to cut this opening material because it felt like a little too much appetizer that might spoil the main course of the Cornerstones themselves. So I removed these chapters from the book, but it's still really cool content. I think really valuable, relatable, insightful. So here we are. So I'm going to offer them to you in these next couple episodes. And and hopefully you dig it. And as I did with the first wave, I will also give you a little preview here of what's to come later in this episode as well as the next 2 before I kick off into this episode's content, which is all about getting lost in the sauce. And really how I understand the kind of like core of what I've struggled with and what a lot of folks that I work with and walk with struggle with. So yeah, cool. All right, preview. So in this episode, Lost in the Sauce, like I just said, in the next episode, I'm going to share about a variety of different influences and contributing factors and like what impacts us and where our inauthenticity might come from. Right. So if you're somebody who recognizes that maybe you're not living totally in alignment with who and what you're really about, you're not alone. And there's actually like a zillion different influences that are impacting us in a zillion different ways almost all the time. And so I'll share a little bit about some of the influences and the origins of our inauthenticity, right? Or why we might be living out of alignment. And then in the third episode of this mini wave, right? So the sixth episode overall for the podcast, then I'll share about the terrible, wonderful blessing of pain. Because it really is all those things. And how pain has played really a key role in my life on multiple occasions, and how Pain is, it's unavoidable, and it's also essential in a lot of ways for a life of authenticity or a journey of healing or recovery. So that's the game plan. And there might be enough content here for a 4th episode. Maybe. We'll see. But I think I'll be able to keep it at 3 and stay in my time windows. So that's the game plan. Those are the 3 episodes. Yeah, and I'm trying to give myself some grace and some patience here, because I have half a scrambled egg Corona brain going on, and yeah, like I still have a little bit of nose stuff, and my chest has a little bit of yuck still clearing out. So I'm not at 100%. I got some Corona brains going on, so I'm gonna be kind and gentle with myself. I'm gonna walk the walk here as I record these next couple episodes, just in case I, trip over my words or go wandering off on tangents. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Got to walk the walk, right? Got to live it if you're talking it. I forget how that goes. See, there you go. Hopefully my brain cells will all cooperate, though. We'll find out together. All right. Let's jump into Lost in the Sauce. Let's jump into the content here for this episode. And again, this isn't a real clinical or professional term. This is more, for me, just, it just feels like an accurate way to describe how I lived for a period of time, and also a space or an energy that I have definitely returned to on several occasions throughout my 18 plus years of recovery and healing. And so I feel like, the first thing I want to say is that becoming lost in the sauce, or finding ourselves lost in the sauce, is the inevitable conclusion of living inauthentically. Right? So if we're not living truly as who and what we are, honoring our own truths and priorities and values, and like what really resonates within us as our own truth, right? If we're living out of alignment with that, then what I've discovered in my life and what I've seen in a lot of the folks that I have had the opportunity to work with and walk with on their journeys. Yeah. Like if you're not honoring yourself, you're inevitably going to get lost in the sauce. And then getting lost in the sauce is what then opens the door or creates the circumstances for a whole bunch of consequences to show up. Right. And for me, that's then the substance use becoming addiction. That's anxiety becoming anxiety disorders. That's like depressive energy then hanging out and starting to claim permanent residency in your being, right? And again, this is just how I see this as a result of my own work and working with people. And so I'm offering it to you as, just one perspective, one understanding of the human condition. So I'm speaking very clearly about it, but also I'm just one knucklehead with one opinion, right? So feel free to disagree with whatever you want to disagree with. But so we live inauthentically. We live out of alignment with our truths, our priorities, our like home, natural vibration of being. Right? When we don't honor that in how we live, that inevitably winds up with us lost in the sauce. And so for me, being lost in the sauce is like being lost in the noise of life. Because if I'm not listening to myself, if I'm not trusting myself, then like what can I trust? Because really life is this moving, grooving, very temporary, always changing cacophony of noise and sound and vibration and people and opinions, right? Like life is a pretty complex, wild thing. And if we can't trust ourselves, if we can't trust our own judgment, our own intuition, our own kind of vibration, yeah, then we're essentially putting our trust or our faith in something outside of ourselves, which is a constantly changing phenomenon. And yeah, and that can get real messy. And the visual that comes through in this moment is is when I almost drowned in Costa Rica, which I'll tell that story at some point down the road. But I remember when I was underwater in the river, yeah, I was in a rapid. And so you don't know which way is up, but like I'm desperately like reaching for the surface, but I'm also getting spun a million miles per hour in a million different directions. So I have no idea where the surface actually is. So I'm reaching for something and I have no idea if, I'm even reaching in the right direction. And yeah, it's just a scary, that moment was super scary. And then also, led to some cool realizations, but yeah, super scary, super defeating, super like helpless. And I felt like that for years of my life as a teen into my early 20s. Yeah, just like lost in this big, wild, changing, crazy, unreliable world full of people with lots of opinions and the opinions are always changing and then the people are coming and going. And so it's like, yeah, man, there's nothing to hold on to. There's no surface to reach for to like kind of break through to get a deep breath of air. And so living in that state for years is then what made me really ripe for then the drugs and the alcohol, which then, manifested quickly into full-blown addiction, and then the gambling as well. And then also the anxiety, the depression. Yeah. Like, I didn't become lost in the sauce because I was in drug addiction. I didn't become lost in the sauce because I had crippling anxiety. I didn't become lost in the sauce because, yeah, I was, falling into depressive spells or depressive episodes. Like, I was lost in the sauce first as a result of not trusting myself and not living authentically as who I really am and who I really was then. So hopefully that's coming through clear. We'll take a moment just to pause here. Yeah, the depressive episodes and the suicidal ideation, fleeting, aggressive, that came and went. The crippling anxiety, the social anxiety, the drug addiction, if you want to separate alcohol addiction, gambling addictions, right? Like all of that manifested out of me being lost in the sauce for an extended period of time. And the way I've understood it or come to understand it is that being lost in the sauce came as a result of not being able to trust myself, not being able to live authentically as who I really am. So that's why at this point in the game, for me, the focus of the work is all about learning about yourself so that you can live authentically. And then when we are living in alignment with who and what we really are, when we're trusting ourselves, when we're listening to our intuition, then a whole bunch of stuff that we used to have to contend with, that just falls off. Like you don't have to fix your drug addiction or your behavioral addiction if you are able to address the underlying pain. Right? It's like a classic Gabor Mate quote. Like don't ask about the addiction, like ask about the pain. Like what is driving the person to seek relief? Because that's really what addiction is. It's relief seeking gone haywire. And that's a common behavior that I see in folks who have been lost in the sauce or are lost in the sauce. There's really two behaviors. It's relief seeking and then approval seeking. Right? So when I'm sitting with folks and, they're dealing with the consequences of being lost in the sauce, right? Almost always there's one or both. There's relief-seeking behaviors in either really big, obvious, unhealthy ways, or in a bunch of like little less unhealthy ways. And then there's also a lot of approval seeking, a lot of validation seeking. Because again, if you're not trusting yourself, if you're not providing the approval for yourself, then you're looking for it somewhere else. And I know the pain and that helplessness that comes from seeking approval and validation outside of yourself in a world that's constantly changing. Yeah, it's no fun. It leads to like an exhaustion that lives in your bones, in your soul, All right. That feels good. I feel like I articulated that well. Hopefully this makes sense. Again, I got half a Rona brain going on, so maybe I dove in too fast, but I like the way that came through. So yeah. So I'm going to go through it one more time just to make sure that my brain is on straight and I feel good, because this understanding for me is foundational for then the coming episodes, but also the way I understand the work I do with folks and the way that I live. And we're going to talk more about the origins and influences in the next episode, so stay tuned. But essentially, we come into the world and there's a lot going on, and we can lose ourselves. We can lose trust in ourselves. We can learn to not trust our intuition, for a variety of reasons. And then once we lose ourselves, we lose our way, we start living other than as what we are, right? When we start living as who we think we should be or how we think we should do things, that's the beginning of inauthenticity. That's how I would describe it. Now, I'm not trying to say people are fake or, you're real or this one's fake, right? Like, I'm not the judge of that. It's just how I've come to understand, like my experience. And, so it's my truth. We'll say it like that. So if we lose ourselves, if we lose our way, if we stop listening to our intuition, if we stop honoring our own truths and values and priorities, for me, I would describe that as living inauthentically, right? Or living out of alignment or living out of whack. And when that starts to happen and continues to happen for a period of time, the inevitable conclusion that I've seen in my life and in the lives of other folks is that then we get lost in the sauce, where we no longer refer to our own intuition, our own natural intelligence, our own presence as our guiding principle or our home base. Right? Instead, we become totally like externally flipped, or our focus just becomes totally about the noise and the circus around us. And then we try to find some sense of peace or some sense of relief externally, which can't actually be found, right? Because what we're looking for is really is ourself. Okay, pause. My brain wants to go 3 different ways. Living inauthentically inevitably arrives at being lost in the sauce. And then as a result of being lost in the sauce, that sense of, it's like helplessness and confusion and like self-judgment. Like for me, this was what was driving the addiction in my late teens and in early 20s. And I've also revisited this space multiple times in my journey. Where I just kind of get lost. I lose the plot, as they say in the UK. I lose myself because I've become overly focused on getting some kind of goal or achieving some kind of thing or, getting a relationship or whatever it is. All right. Once I get lost out on the sauce again or in the sauce, it's just a terrible feeling. It's like a soul exhaustion coupled with just scared, but like so chronically scared that it just becomes background. Like it becomes like the flavor to the whole experience and you don't even realize anymore. Scared, lost, confused, and just tired. But also feeling like I have to continue to doggy paddle to have any chance at finally finding peace. And not knowing which way I should even be going. Right. Yeah. I can feel that in my chest and my gut as I'm talking about it. Ugh. And so in that space, when we're lost, that's when I've witnessed the real problematic stuff start to show up. You know, like if you're home, you're in alignment, you're living as who you really are, there's not going to be too much like unnecessary bullshit that shows up, right? Like if you're listening to your intuition, you're going to know how to navigate stuff. You'll trust yourself. You're okay with however it works out. But if you're not in tune or in touch or in alignment with who and what you really are, right? Your presence, your being, yeah, it opens the door for like judgment and guilt and regret and doubt, and all that funky stuff just starts swirling and spinning. You know, and then we seek for relief through a variety of behaviors. We might find ourselves in a relief-seeking behavior pattern, which then can become automatic, and you know, and then that's potentially when addiction can really manifest, right, and own us. Also, when we're kind of lost in the sauce out there and feeling like that, for me, that's those conditions are ripe for anxiety to become anxiety disorders, also for depressive spells to become like full-on depressive episodes. Yeah, I'm a little weird. I see anxious energy and depressive energy, and then, yeah. Anyway, I'll do an episode on that at some point. But so hopefully this is making sense, the way I see this kind of causal chain here, right? We're born. Some of us will live authentically from the rip, and so everything that I'm sharing isn't really part of their experience or too much. And if that's the case, they're probably not listening to this podcast. But for some of us, for others, right, we get bumped off our line, and then we start living inauthentically, reactively, not in alignment with our truths, but more kind of externally focused. And that inevitably leads to getting lost in the sauce, right? Lost in the soup of whatever this life trip is. And then the more lost we get, the more susceptible, the more ripe we are for, some real problematic stuff to start to rear its head, right? Like the real ugly, funky mold only grows on the stuff that's, I've been sitting in the back of the fridge for a long time. And so what I've seen is, the things that like Western clinical psychology and medical, like this whole framework, like it's a lot of symptom treating, right? It's like symptom reduction. And for me, that's these symptoms that our medical system treats are like the third step in the chain. So you're not going to really experience any long-lasting relief if you're just cutting the weed at the surface, right? Like we got to get the roots. And for me, what I've come to understand is that the roots is the degree of authenticity with which we live. Right? Like how much you are you, really, truly. Because when we're really being ourselves and honoring what's true for us, it's a totally different experience. Yeah, and then the cornerstones for me is the recipe for how to get back in tune and back in touch with ourselves so that we can live according to our own truths. And then we don't get lost in the sauce. And then we don't deal with all the symptoms and the shenanigans that come from being lost in the sauce. All right. That feels good. Let me do a little time check. Oh, yeah. Sweet. So hopefully that feels good. That feels clear. If you can relate or connect, awesome. If you're considering things and doors of your mind are opening up, that's good too. Talk to people about it. You can always buzz me. I'm around. Again, like this is the process that I lead people or through or guide people into. And it's cool too for me that, when I'm working with folks, I don't, like when I first started helping people in the professional counselor role, I thought I had to have the answers and like diagnose people and fix them. And that was a lot of pressure and a lot of codependency. And, and as I've matured and grown as a being, I've come to realize like, oh no, all I need to do is like help folks who are ready come back to what they really are. And then just watch them blossom as they trust themselves more and listen to themselves more, and release the noise and release the baggage, they've accumulated. So it's such a cool trip for me to be on. Like, I just hang out with people who are learning how to be themselves more. And I've been doing this for a minute, so I have some insight and some suggestions and some experience. But yeah, it's so cool to hang out with people that are embracing themselves and learning how to, just be who they are. Like remembering who they really are, and then bringing that out into the world. And then the ripples that creates, like the beautiful, positive ripples that living authentically creates. That's good. That feels good. that makes my heart feel better after talking about being lost in the sauce. Yeah. Whew. Yeah. And I think actually knowing the pain and the despair of being lost in the sauce is almost like the price of admission to then come to a valuing and a prioritizing of, who I really am, and letting that loose in the world and experiencing the peace and the contentment and the fulfillment that comes with it. And this feels, kind of like some of the stuff I'll talk about in the episode about the blessing of pain. All right. I think I'm doing good on time. I don't need to ramble if I'm done here. I'm going to look at my notes one more time. See if there's any other nuggets floating around that I'd like to share with you. Otherwise, we will bring this episode to close. Yeah, that talked about the common behaviors I've seen. Yep. Yeah, and then being lost in the sauce, right? Like losing ourselves or being out of alignment. Like, that's obviously going to have a ton of impact in a ton of ways on our relationships with others, also our relationship with ourselves, how we show up in our lives. And the coolest thing that I see time and time again is when people start living more authentically, right? And not according to me, like according to them, right? Like according to their own truths. When they start living like that, a lot of the problems they thought they needed to fix just disappear. Because the problems came as a result of you not being yourself. And so you don't need to fix the problems. You just got to be yourself more. That's all. And it's so cool. Like, there's so much less to do to have a more fulfilling, peaceful, contented experience. And right now we're just talking about the journey back, right? Or the remembering of ourselves. There's a whole nother chapter of once we're home, right? And living authentically. Like the game just changes and the ceiling blows wide open, and it's just a totally different quality of experience when we become more inner oriented, start living by intuition, and my whole body relaxes as I start thinking and talking about it. So, all right, I think that's good. Yeah, let's end on the short side of things. Yeah, good. And so in the next episode, I'm going to dive into like how we get lost or how we get unaligned, right? How we start to find ourselves or lose ourselves in patterns of behavior and relationship patterns and ways of living that just are not us, right? Are not really what we're about. Because we got a lot of help. It feels like the whole society and everybody in it is conspiring to help us lose ourselves. But for some of us, we're blessed with the pain that can come from living out of alignment, which then will bring us back to ourselves. And then we get to know, just a wondrous peace and super cool quality of experience that comes from just being what we are, And I wish that even in the smallest drop, for everybody, for every being. Because that's a taste that changes the game. Just a little bit of the profound contented, peaceful, effortless brilliance. Ugh. Yeah, just a little drop of that. And it's almost like everything that used to matter, everything that used to be color, just goes black and white, right? It starts to fade. And there's a brand new like level to the game, or a brand new boss, that shows up. So yes, if you're listening, I wish for you even the smallest drop, but definitely more than just one drop. And then what I really wish is, that we all, those of us that are ready and available, that we lean into a waterfall of peace and ease, like the entire ocean of effortless grace that is our birthright, or is what we really are. Yeah, the words start to fail at this point, but yeah. And so hopefully some of this podcast material, some of what I'm sharing with you, helps nudge your journey in that direction, or supports the amazingness that you already are, and the journey that you're already on. So, all right, we're going to be done with the first episode. Yay! Got it done. I'm telling you, I tried to record this episode like a dozen times. It was painful, but here we are. I feel like I did a decent job. If you have questions, definitely feel free to reach out with the follow-up stuff or anything that comes up with you. But yeah, a lot of the shenanigans and the BS that we deal with in our life in the form of disorders and symptoms and health conditions and suffering that ultimately we can recognize is no longer necessary. Yeah, it's necessary for a period of time, but it's not necessary forever, right? Because suffering kind of brings our attention to things that need attention. But yeah, all the crap and the BS and the soon to be unnecessary suffering, right? Like that's the result of being lost in the sauce, right? Losing your center, losing your alignment, no longer living as you are in alignment, with what you're really about, right? That being lost in the sauce is the inevitable conclusion of just living out of whack, of not trusting yourself, not being yourself. And so then the remedy is to just be yourself, which, yeah, like how many memes a day and how many self-help books and how many people are like, oh, just be yourself. Just trust yourself. Just be, it's like, okay, cool, bro. But how do you do that? Right. And so for me, what I found is how you do that, the recipe or a recipe for that is the cornerstones. Yeah. The system is so cool. And again, like I can't even claim that I created it. It's more like I recognized it in my life as a result of all the experiences and teachers that I've had. And and then I've just articulated it in a way. And none of the practices are like reinventing the wheel. It's just pulling together a system and then and then focusing our energy and efforts in the cornerstones. Then helps us learn about ourselves and then then live in alignment with what we learn about ourselves. And so, the cornerstones are a practical way to do the shift back to living more authentically. And more on the cornerstones in future episodes. All right. That's it. I'm done. The rambling and the bamblings is over for this episode. Thanks for listening. As always, love y'all. Be well. And maybe tune in for the next one.